These are the first open-back headphones ever produced, and to this day, they still hold the record as one of the best-selling full-size models of all time. But with the price of €80 in the second-hand market, are they really worth it? And if Sennheiser is such a well-respected audio manufacturer, is it true that the company is selling its consumer division and will not be making headphones any longer? Let's jump into it. If music is the most powerful medium for thought, mood, and movement control, then headphones are the instrument that gives people the possibility to listen to their own personal library wherever they go. They allow users to gain more control over the environment, to find privacy in public, and to add a soundtrack to everything we do, like commuting, walking the dog, or doing sports, making the most tedious activities more pleasurable. Even though headphones came into existence more than 100 years ago, it was only during the last decades that they became an essential part of our everyday urban life. This major transformation, from a gadget that was mainly utilized by telephone operators and military personnel into a mass consumer product, was only possible due to a number of technological breakthroughs that are now considered milestones of audio history. Some of the most important early developments were the release of the first dynamic earphones by Bayer Dynamic in 1937, the leap-forward design of AKG's K120s in 1949, followed by the success of John Cott's first ever stereo headphones in 1958. Despite the fact that these were incredible achievements, their steep price made them a hi-fi product aimed at a reduced group of audiophiles and music enthusiasts. Now, if we consider the release of Sony's Walkman in 1979, the very start of its massification, and arguably the most important event in headphone history, then it's fair to ask, what happened in between these bulky, heavy and expensive old units and the portable lightweight models that flooded the streets during the 80s and the 90s? Well, this happened. These are the first open-back headphones ever produced. In 1968, a fairly new German audio company that was specialized in building microphones decided to jump into a completely new line of products. It came up with an original and forward-thinking design and called it Open Air, what today is called open back or supraoral. For the first time, the ear caps surrounding the speakers were completely open to the environment, resting lightly on the ears rather than enclosing them. This created a more immersive and wider sound experience that felt much like being present in a real-life performance and way similar to normal hearing. Back then, this was a complete breakthrough. The concept was so radical, it changed the way in which music was produced and paved the way to the cultural revolution that came 10 years later when music began to be portable. That company was Sennheiser, and the headphones were the HD 414. Not only they offered a refreshing new way of listening to music, their unique design made them extremely comfortable and also very affordable. Thanks to the mass reduction that came with the removal of the ear enclosure and the sound insulating materials, they weighed only 135 grams and sold for around 55 Deutsche Marks, 110 euros when adjusted to inflation. Other models from that era, like the well-known COS Pro, were 4 times heavier, sometimes even breaking the half-a kilo mark. Plus, they retail for $50 from 1966. That's 380 euros on today's purchasing power, which is a huge difference. The same difference between a consumer product and a luxury item. Needless to say, the HD 414 became an overnight success, putting finally an end to the days of neck-bending, airtight, claustrophobic listening sessions. Sennheiser did a great marketing campaign and advertised them not as a niche device aimed at enthusiasts, but as a consumer gadget for the average household. Their colorful foam rubber cushions and the faces of the campaign were a distinctive mark that appealed to a younger crowd on smaller budgets. Just a few years later, headphones were not selling by the thousands anymore, but by the millions. There were many iterations of the 414 during the decades it was in production. This particular model I found on my local eBay is the HD 414X, which sells today for around 100 euros. It's a newer version from the early 1970s when they were already a bestseller. As an upgrade, it has a wider and smoother frequency response and incorporates a serration in the headband that locks the drivers in the desired most comfortable position. By the end of the 70s, Sennheiser sold over 10 million pairs of the HD414, and still to this day, they're the best-selling full-size headphones in history. So how do they perform today in 2021? Well, they actually do sound amazing. Due to their flat and uniform high-frequency response, they provide a clear, spacious and enjoyable listening experience with no colorations or accentuations. Compared to 21st century headphones, with many times overemphasized lows, these probably won't show a strong and punchy lower bass, although they're definitely not thin or bright either. They really sound fantastic when playing rock and roll, jazz and classical music, but also when listening to more modern genres like synthwave or lo-fi, as well as being very immersive while gaming. It's important to mention that the first runs of the HD414, like this one, had an impedance of 2000 ohms, which is rather high for modern standards and makes them difficult to drive by phones or tablets, although it's no problem for a headphone amplifier or an audio interface with an output impedance of about 200 ohms. They also came with a proprietary connection standard called HCL26, which was used in many models of that time. But don't worry, Sennheiser still sells the cable with the adapter to 3.5mm jack, as well as replacements of the yellow ear pads. The German company later revisited the HD414 and released a 600 ohms iteration by 1975 and a 52 ohms model for the 50th anniversary. In this way, if you're interested in buying a pair and you don't have an amplifier, you can pick one of the newer versions. I personally prefer the 2000 ohms original ones because they have less distortion and sound very clear at higher volumes. And please remember that these headphones do leak sound to the environment, so they're definitely not for every situation. Another major disruption caused by the HD414 was at music production level. Sound engineers across the board suddenly found themselves with millions of people listening to their favorite tunes on open-back headphones, so they had to change quite a bit what they were doing in the mixing and mastering stages of record production. The professionals working at those studios were taken by their wearing comfort and the breathing sonic experience of that new design, allowing for long sessions without causing hearing fatigue or muscle strain. The music and film industry already considered Sennheiser a well-respected manufacturer of microphones, but now things were taking a different turn. They were breaking into the consumer market with a bang. By mid-1970s, the HD414 managed to make full-size headphones portable, affordable, and even the music business was starting to adapt to its characteristics. Just a few years later, when Sony was working on the release of the first ever personal stereo and needed a lightweight, low-power and yet good-sounding pair of headphones, all it had to do was just reach out to Sennheiser. And that's exactly what it did. Sony licensed the open-air technology directly from the German company and bundled its first-generation Walkman in 1979 together with a pair of MDR3L2 headphones, a very similar design which even kept the same colorful earpads of the 414 but had to trade some of its sound quality in order to work on batteries. We all know how that story ended. Sony sold 400 million Walkmans and changed the way people listen to music, but let's not forget how it started. Even though many times overlooked, the legacy of the HD414 is very real. And so, what's the legacy of Sennheiser headphones? The first open-back design put them on the map, and through decades of research, hard work and dedication, they delivered legendary models that became longtime favorites of both music enthusiasts and industry professionals. Now, if we flash forward to 2021, you might think Sennheiser is still making amazing headphones, right? Well, unfortunately, in a move that broke the heart of many audiophiles, the company decided to sell off their consumer electronics division and won't be manufacturing them any longer. The acquisition will be done by Sonova, an internationally active Swiss company who is the world's largest provider of hearing care solutions, and the takeover is expected to be completed in early 2022. But why did this happen? How come an institution with that pedigree ended up making such a decision? That is really hard to say, but fortunately, Andreas and Daniel Sennheiser, the co-CEOs of Sennheiser Electronic, have been always very vocal about the present and the future of their family business. From those records, we can take that there were three very important factors, which led to the sell-off of their consumer division. First off was the lack of innovation on new technologies during the first phase of the smartphone revolution. Sennheiser did not commit quick enough to the development of features like true wireless or active noise cancelling. So then, brands like Sony, Bose and Apple established a name for themselves by being at the forefront of those innovations, capturing huge shares of the market. Now, when people look for the best wireless or the best noise cancelling headphones, Sennheiser is just not up there on the list anymore. Second was underestimating new competitors. In the early 2010s, the headphone game drastically changed again. Now, literally everyone was carrying a computer in their pocket, so the whole world was a new potential buyer. Companies that were just breaking into the scene, like Beats by Dre and Skull Candy, were very much aware of how less exploited this segment was, and created an aggressive marketing campaign that blended the concepts of fashion, iconography, energy and design. Meanwhile, Sennheiser was still firm on his more traditional position, and kept focusing on the customers who really understood audio. But the times when sound quality and comfort were enough to be a bestseller were sadly over. Just a few years later, 60% of high-end headphones sold in the US bared the Beats logo. The third important factor, and the one that makes us understand why the CEOs of Sennheiser might have made the right decision, is the current state of the headphone market. In the last couple of years, thousands of new Chinese audio brands, with wacky names and many times without even a website, started to compete in marketplaces like Amazon, AliExpress and Taobao, with products such as earphones, earbuds and headphones. Audiophiles online started to tear down and analyze those units, to realize sometimes the drivers or other key components were coming from the same assembly line as for Apple, Beats or Sennheiser. Some of those companies have now built a good reputation, like Fio or Hi-Fi Man, offering great sounding devices at an unbeatable price. This left the German company with the low and mid price ranges saturated by cheaper Chinese brands, and the high end populated by big players like Sony, Grado and Bayer Dynamic. The headphone space officially became a commodity market, where manufacturers raced to make the cheapest knockoff of each other, very far off from the philosophy of Sennheiser that always prioritize audio quality. But hey, history is not yet written. Sonova is a well-respected group with more than 75 years of experience in electroacoustics and 14,000 employees. Formerly known as Phonak, it already broke into the consumer market with the line called Audio in 2008, offering high-quality earphones and in-ear monitors that were highly praised by critics and audiophiles. There are still many questions unanswered, like will Sonova lay off some of the workforce migrating from Sennheiser? Or, if the average age of a customer in the hearing aid market is 71 years old, how are they going to appeal to teenagers and young adults? Many people say this could be a match in heaven. Others say that a degradation in product quality in future consumer products is inevitable. I guess only time will tell, but one thing is certain. If you take good care of your audio gear, it will last a lifetime, and so the legacy of Sennheiser headphones will never be forgotten. I hope you enjoyed the video. It is actually quite odd to see yet another well-respected, successful and beloved audio manufacturer leaving the space for good. I do believe that there was probably a lot that could have been done to save Sennheiser's consumer division, but given the new market conditions, maybe it was actually a good call. Anyways, thanks for watching. Until next time.